happiness can be found even in the darkest of times.
Close your eyes. Now picture the Order of the Phoenix, only one thing is different. Dolores Umbridge isn't a completely terrible person. All of her worst characteristics no longer exist. Sounds like a boring story now, right? That's because all of Harry Potter is made better by flawed characters. We promise we won't become a giant insult machine over the course of this video. There are positives that come out of these negatives. For instance, you may see Voldemort or Draco in different lights after all of this. Then again, maybe you'll disagree with us. You'll have to watch to decide.
Welcome, welcome to another year at Hogwarts.
Draco started out as a greasy-haired little bully and grew up into a slightly less greasy side villain.
He's just a boy.
Well, you can't knock him for consistency, that's for sure. But honestly, his list of flaws is so long, if we read them all out right now, YouTube could shove 3 ad breaks in this entry alone. The guy just had no redeeming arc for 6 2/3 of the books.
Don't you understand? I have to do this.
Malfoy is all the rotten Wonka children wrapped into one character. He shows contempt for his equals, disrespects authority, and mocks good manners. We're pretty sure JK Rowling just imagined the worst qualities a child could have and mixed them all together. Seriously, tell us one positive thing he does up until the 7th book. We can't find anything. This video is about the worst thing though, not the fact Malfoy is super mean.
Now, Draco, play nicely.
If we had to narrow it down to one rotten characteristic, it'd have to be his ego. The Malfoy name holds a lot of weight in the wizarding community, and Malfoy takes advantage of that every chance he gets. Hence, the general terribleness.
That's for my father. Enjoy your ride back to London.
Ah, Miss Weasley, come in, come in.
True confession, sometimes we watch the entire film series and then totally forget about Ginny until the very end. She's a shell of her personality from the book, and the romance between her and Harry can come off as half-baked.
Leave him alone.
All that makes it super hard to point out the worst thing about her character. It's not Ginny's fault the script cut down on her screen time. Combine that lack of an impression with a tendency to show a mean streak and you get an unlikable character. You either dislike Ginny's limited role or forget that she exists.
I don't even know who you are.
She can't win. Then again, maybe don't create such a vengeful character in the first place. Ginny gets a bit aggressive when sticking up for her friends. Sometimes it's not even called for at the moment. She cranks up the conflict to an 11 faster than you can say Hufflepuff. The only upside to this is the way this comes out in her magic. She's a boss at the Reducto spell because she has so much energy pent up inside her. If this were the first 2 Harry Potter books or movies, we'd be having a field day with Neville Longbottom's flaws. The kid was more bent out of shape than a Quidditch player dealing with a broom jinx. Poor Longbottom was like all those people that got nominated for Queer Eye. Lucky for him, his glow-up definitely seemed sponsored by Tan France. Neville went from 0 to hero in a flash. Keep in mind, the Binger is a pro Neville is the Chosen One channel. We support the possibility and we recognize that without him, there's no victory over Voldemort. Simply put, Neville became a boss. Finding a bad thing about him became a Where's Waldo picture set on extreme difficulty. Don't worry, we found one. One single thing that's bad about Neville. By the end, he has almost everything going for him, but something isn't quite right. He's still insecure. It's his biggest issue. Neville never believed in himself enough, and it holds him back. Every film he grew more secure, but he never totally grew out of that problem.
Sorry, don't wish to be rude, but I'm in no fit state to entertain today.
Picking on Hagrid is like pulling the stuffing out of a giant teddy bear. It's wrong. No, you know what? It's not just wrong, it's inhumane. So while he is an entry on this list, we're going to do our best to be kind to him. Rubeus Hagrid is a great man and a loyal friend who deserves our support. Unfortunately, we have to do this. We're sorry, Hagrid. Okay, time to get real. Ask yourself this. Would you tell Hagrid a huge secret? If you answered yes, then you probably also support 3 Nigerian princes.
When the son of the deposed king of Nigeria emails you directly asking for help, you help.
Hagrid just manages to spill the beans a few times too many for us to trust him with personal info.
I shouldn't have told you that. I should not have told you that.
It's a compulsion for him. His catchphrase is, "I should not have said that." We draw the line at calling him useless or idiotic. That's Malfoy talk. Hagrid does occasionally make the risky decision, but it's out of his good nature. He always means well, even when it creates a giant spider den in the middle of the Forbidden Forest. You can't knock him for having a big heart.
Brilliant, Professor.
Turn back time and imagine we made this video before the 7th book came out. Imagine if we stood behind Snape then. The backlash would be monumental. He was consistently on the top of people's most hated characters list. Okay, that's not true at all. Umbridge was undoubtedly number 1. Snape was at least in the top 3. So yeah, we can point out the fact he's a Death Eater. However, that's terrible news for any wizard with the dark mark. We want to bring up something more reflective. At first, we wanted to say he was too emotionally blinded by his affections toward Lily. In hindsight, though, all of that is forgivable. We understand why he'd be so connected to her. We decided the worst thing about Snape is the way he closes himself off to everyone. Even Dumbledore never fully understood his love for Lily and how deep he can empathize with people. If he had been a touch more personable, things might have gone differently. It's weird, though, that we say this is the worst thing, but it helped us discover the best parts about him. There's so much to say about Albus, Percival, Wulfric, and
Brown. Dumbledore.
you know what? No. Having a name that long is arguably the worst part of Dumbledore. He's a powerful wizard who commands respect, but my god, that name is a mouthful. We want to count it, but we can't blame him for his name.
Harry, you put your name in a goblet of fire.
He had no choice in the matter, and he didn't force people to say it all. We could also talk about how secretive he was. He holds so many cards close to his chest that Harry is often left in the dark. He had all the knowledge and rarely used it. Yes, it helps Harry grow, but we know some situations would have gone better if he was more open. Think about how quickly Horcrux hunting would have gone if he found a smarter way to talk about that magic. The cherry on top is the way he used Harry. Snape says it loud and clear.
You've been raising him like a pig for slaughter.
No other way to sugarcoat that fact. Dumbledore used everyone. He manipulated all of them just like chess pieces.
Dumbledore's got style.
Tom Riddle, is that such an awful name? Voldemort hates his parents, and he hates his past. We get it. Consider the fact his parents named him after his father and clearly cared about him. All that and he still decides to dump a fine enough name. Say Voldemort 5 times fast. It sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? Tom Riddle is evil and straightforward. Obviously, the Dark Lord was super insecure. He gets hung up on these little things and is determined to prove he's powerful so no one can bully him. He's a deep psychological hole that takes books to suss out. Did he think making himself look like a snake was helping his public image? Then he goes and collects all these ancient knickknacks. The guy was asking to be put down. Okay, rant over. We aren't gonna keep talking about how small and sad Voldemort is in the grand scheme of things. Obviously, the worst part of this character is everything. He's evil. No ounce of him is good. Parts of him are weak and vulnerable, but there's nothing really good.
You should feel bad.
Another Weasley. I know just what to do with you.
Warm up the hot take machine because we've got one reading to be dished out. Ron Weasley is a great friend, let's make that clear. He's dependable, but he's not loyal. Ron would show constant and firm support for Harry if he was a loyal friend. It's not the case, though. He's trustworthy, but his support isn't always firm. In fact, it's often a central point of conflict in the later books. He still shows up in the end, but that only makes him dependable. Get it? Some would argue he gets jealous, and his inability to empathize with Harry at times is his biggest flaw. We can certainly see that point. It shows up at times, but we know Harry would be lost without him. Ron can't help that his wizard friend doesn't know much about wizards. It's a cultural difference that he can't help, which is why we argue it's his flimsy loyalty. Do we even need to talk about the great 1-1 debacle of Year 6? His relationship with Lavender Brown isolated him from supporting Harry and Hermione. Come on, that's proof enough.
Don't worry, 1-1. I'm here.
What? There has to have been a mistake. Hermione Granger should not be on this list. There's nothing really wrong with her. She always helps the underdog and handles issues with maturity. Plus, she punches Malfoy when he deserves it. Nothing about her is flawed. Let's just move on. Oh, no? Still not moving? Alright, fine, we'll think of something. We won't be excited about it, though. You can't make us willingly hate on her. Okay, if we have to pick something, we guess you could say she's stubborn. Maybe, just maybe, you might call her a know-it-all. Which isn't even fair, she does know it all. Did you see her help Harry and Ron through those books? She carried that team. Right, sorry, we're supposed to pick the worst things. It's just not easy here, okay? Hermione did occasionally fail to hear a good idea from another side character. In fact, she definitely listens to Harry more than she looks to Ron. Hermione's certainly sure in her brains, but not always confident in anything else. She then tends to overcompensate and lean on that strength too often. She's still awesome, though.
At least we know one positive thing that came from today.
We've saved the chosen one for last to remind you that we sort of made a longer video specifically about him. You can find out all about his most heroic and most foolish moments after this video. Okay, so self-promotion is our biggest flaw, but let's get back to Mr. Potter and this list. Harry Potter is one of the most accessible protagonists in recent years. He's nowhere near perfect, but he discovers magic right alongside the readers and viewers. Imagine if Harry was the perfect protagonist. It would be so dull, kind of like another character that we know. With all that being said, some flaws just grind our gears. For instance, he does make frequent mistakes and shows a lack of appreciation for his friends sometimes. However, his sass helps us forgive him for that. Our choice has to be his hot-headed run-ins. Way too often, Harry reacts with pure emotion and forgets all logic, like he's some sort of horror film character. Voldemort calls him a fool, and he's not totally wrong. When Harry acts before thinking, it is super foolish. We can't make a better argument than that. Maybe you feel that we missed a key character or overlooked a big flaw. Go ahead and tell us in the comments down below. Which entry was your favorite? You can show your support by liking this video and subscribing to keep up with the Bingers' daily content.